I didn't talk about this a few weeks ago for a reason. I didn't believe it. I'm one of those who won't believe it until I see it. That's right. I'm talking about Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking about the greatest heavyweight UFC fighter of all time going up against the greatest light heavyweight UFC fighter of all time. Pound for pound, even though he had one fucking fight this year. It's a joke that he's tied with Volkanovski there. But let's dive into it, folks. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. I didn't think this was going to happen. In fact, I've been very vocal on live streams and on this very channel, believing that this wasn't going to happen. I was very much on the side that Stipe Miocic ain't going to come out of pretty much retirement, the biggest layoff in his career, where he's fighting fires, not training as much. Now, he is still training. That's confirmed with every MMA media source and just fighters in the community there. But there's a difference between continuing to train as a martial artist, a mixed martial artist, and championship level training to keep your belt or compete at the highest level regularly 2-3 fights a year. There's a huge difference. Now, he's fighting fires. He's staying in shape. Part of his camp is putting on some muscle here for this fight because Jon Jones got some weight on him. Now, Jon Jones, I know, is probably going to slim up a little bit for this one as well, but still, Jon Jones is going to be the bigger guy, at least beefier guy, as Stipe Miocic was never the biggest heavyweight despite being the greatest of all time in the UFC. And I say that because he's got 4 title defenses and no other heavyweight in the UFC in their entire history has had more than 3 title defenses. So Stipe Miocic, he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Now, that's what they're going to, sell this fight. Greatest heavyweight fighter of all time against greatest light heavyweight fighter of all time. You look at their accomplishments. Oh my God, Jon Jones, he blows that fish right out of the water. You know what I'm saying? We all know that. But let's get back to the matchup. Let's address the obvious. No one thinks Stipe Miocic is going to win. Stipe Miocic is 41 years old. 41 years old. A near 3-year layoff. And I know Jon Jones came back after his layoff, but again, there's definitely a difference here. And I know Stipe Miocic, a heavyweight. Heavyweights last longer. But again, his last fights were not easy fights. He took a lot of damage. He got knocked out by Ngannou brutally. His last fights weren't easy on his body. Now, again, he's been away for a while. He's recovered, but you got to think there's going to be a little bit of a ring rust. And going up against Jon Jones, who again, was a dominant champion at light heavyweight. It's obviously a little bit different. We can get all into the semantics, but you all are smart MMA fans. We don't have to. We know who's going to win this fight. Even 3 years ago, we knew who was going to win this fight. And that's going to be Jon Jones. Do I think it's going to be a bigger test than Ciryl Gane? Absolutely. Stipe Miocic has a wrestling background, is a good striker, mind you, in the pocket, not at range. This is just such a bad matchup for him at heavyweight, given just how long Jon Jones is and how much power he has because of that range. But barring just a straight, beautiful shot or a head kick in the opening frame of the first round, I think this actually goes a couple rounds. Do I think Jon Jones will eventually finish it? Absolutely. It's going to go longer than the Ciryl Gane fight. Let's just say, I know that's not a huge, that's not a huge number there, but I do think it's going to be more of a challenge for him. But as far as getting better matchups, there was one right under the UFC's nose. Why isn't Sergei Pavlovich getting the title shot? He deserves it. He's a better challenge for Jon Jones, and it's going to be a more entertaining fight. And the fans don't necessarily want to see Stipe Miocic get beaten up, much like we don't want to see the Korean Zombie go in there against Volkanovski, go in there against Max Holloway, even though he's a legend and he deserves those matchups given where he still technically is in the rankings. We know how this story is going to go. We know how this is going to end, and it's not going to be good. And it kind of discredits everything that Pavlovich has been doing right now. And again, no disrespect to Stipe Miocic here. The guy can come back and fight whoever the he wants. He clearly is getting paid for this one, because I can't imagine he was lining up to fight Jon Jones. I can't imagine he was raising his hand the highest here, saying, pick me, pick me. The UFC picked him. The UFC has wanted this one. And I have my reasons why. I have my thoughts why, and we'll get into it in just a sec. So continue to follow along here. Could this be the last fight for both of these guys? Win or lose. If Miocic, somehow wins this fight and goes down in history as having the biggest upset in MMA history, because that's what it will be, ladies and gentlemen, if Stipe Miocic wins. Regardless of what the odds show, that is fact. He's going to retire. Like, this is Stipe Miocic's last fight. This is a big money fight. You can't really turn this one down. He's going to get pay-per-view points, I imagine. I don't think it's going to be the last fight for Jon Jones. A lot of people and media are hinting towards that as well. I don't think so. I think if this was going to be Jon Jones' last fight, the UFC would have made him fight Pavlovich. They would have given the challenger the best opportunity to win, so they have a new champion already there, and they have the passing of the torch. It's an easy transition. Jon Jones beats Stipe Miocic and retires. What the are we even doing here? You know what I mean? Like, was it all worth it, Jon Jones? You know what I mean? Like, what was it all for? Because this didn't really help your legacy. You beat Cyril Gane and a 41-year-old Stipe Miocic. Mind you, the greatest heavyweight champion of all time. But still, Fedor is the best heavyweight champion of all time. Just not in the UFC. And again, why I don't think it's going to be the last fight for Jon Jones, they would have made him fight Sergei. They would have made him fight Sergei. The UFC would have made it an entertaining fight. They would have at least had a plan, a path for potential new champion, the passing of the guard, easy transition. I think the fact that Jon Jones wanted to fight Stipe means that he's going to fight one more fight. He kind of knows that I can get this one done. And the UFC are probably saying, yeah, if you want the Stipe fight, if you want another, and again, no disrespect to Stipe, but layup in this division, we'll give you one of the older guys. We'll give you one of the past champions. We'll give you a guy who quite literally was out the door. Now he's coming back in the door. Because if the UFC were really scared that Jon Jones was going to hang him up, or if he told them, I'm retiring after this, I truly believe they would have made him fight Pavlovich. The UFC wants one more fight out of Jones. And this is why I think that they were by all means trying to get the Stipe fight to happen. That's why the UFC was really always still talking about. They never let it go. And they were probably, that's what Stipe, he's taking this because the UFC are probably paying him handsomely for this one, because they want to squeeze out as much money as they can out of Jon Jones in the UFC, because he's almost done. So they want two more fights. And if fighting Stipe Miocic, even if they have to overpay Stipe for this one, I'm sure the UFC is like, fine, because then we can do Pavlovich next. And if Jon Jones retires after that one, at that point, whatever. It's a problem, but it's less of a problem than if he beats Stipe Miocic and retires. And the Pavlovich fight was right there. The Ngannou fight was right there for 3 years. And the UFC would be the ones who ultimately fumbled the bag on Jon Jones in the heavyweight division. I think they have to get two more fights out of him. They have to. Again, if Stipe Miocic somehow, some way gets this done, it's going to be the greatest story in MMA history. It will be the greatest upset in MMA history. This will be bigger than Matt Serra GSP. It will. It will be bigger. It will have more weight than Matt Serra GSP. One, that is. And again, I think it will be more competitive than the Cyril Gane and Jon Jones fight. I think Stipe will last a little bit longer. I hope 2 rounds. I'll say he lasts 2 rounds. I don't think he gets out of the third, though. I'm rooting for him. I always like going for the underdogs, and I'm going for Stipe Miocic on this one. The UFC wants to see 2 more fights out of Jon Jones, or they'd make him fight Pavlovich, who is the rightful contender, but hey, if Stipe Miocic is going to come back for a big fight, if he's going to come back at all, it's going to be for a big fight, and he's going to get paid.